Back in 1993, a family comedy arrived that somehow made audiences laugh and cry in the very same moment. Mrs. Doubtfire quickly became one of the most beloved films of the decade, but the story behind the movie is even wilder than what appeared on screen. Robin Williams didn't just play Daniel Hillard, he unleashed nonstop improvisation so unpredictable that the crew had to burn through nearly 2 million feet of film just trying to keep up with him. The legendary melting cake scene. What looked like comedy genius was actually a total accident that Williams transformed into movie magic within seconds. But that was only the beginning. Hidden behind the laughs are far more shocking secrets than most fans ever realized. Today, we're diving into 18 weird facts about Entity, movie, Mrs. Doubtfire, You. Number 1. Several emotional scenes were deleted from the final film. Mrs. Doubtfire almost carried even more emotional weight than audiences saw in theaters. Several dramatic scenes were originally filmed that explored the pain, tension, and heartbreak of divorce in greater depth. These moments focused more heavily on the messy reality of a family being torn apart, were ultimately removed so the movie could stay fast-paced, funny, and more accessible to family audiences. The final version balanced comedy with emotion, but some of the darker material never made it to screen. One deleted moment, Elle confronting his own jealousy. In that scene, he apologizes to Stu, Miranda's easygoing and kind new boyfriend. It would have added another powerful layer to the story by showing Daniel recognizing where he had gone wrong. That scene also would have helped audience than just a frantic father in disguise. It showed a man trying to grow, face his mistakes, and become better for the people he loved. Because in the end, Daniel's real battle was never against staying his own behavior, insecurity, and fear of losing his family. Number 2, the custody battle sparked real conversations about fathers' rights. Mrs. Doubtfire did not inspire divorced fathers to disguise themselves as nannies, but it did strongly connect with many men who felt pushed aside during custody disputes. Daniel Hillard is shown as a loving father who loses primary custody because he is unemployed and living in an unstable situation. He even states that custody decisions had historically tended to favor mothers. That line hit hard for many viewers in 1993 and reflect frustrations some fathers already felt within the legal system. Family law experts reference the movie as both a cautionary tale and a reflection of real emotional conflict. It is often used as an example of what not to do during a custody case, since deception and identity fraud would obviously be disastrous strategies. But Daniel's desperation still felt off-putty. He wasn't portrayed as evil or uncaring. He was immature, reckless, and deeply flawed, yet undeniably devoted to his children. That tension resonated with fathers who believed the system did not always fully recognize paternal involvement. Because of that, the film became part of a wider conversation: fatherhood, and the emotional complexity of divorce, all wrapped inside comedy, disguises, and a Scottish accent. Number 3, Mrs. Doubtfire 2 almost happened more than once. Hollywood tried for years to create a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire, but every attempt eventually fell apart. The first serious push reportedly came in 2001, when actress and writer Bonnie Hunt was hired to develop a script. The project had stalled. Entity, known celeb Robin Williams. The sequel simply wasn't working, and neither he nor director Entity People, Cheech, Chris Columbus' Tenuation without genuine heart behind it. There was also a Ma Am Ma, the end of the original film. Daniel's identity as Mrs. Doubtfire had already been revealed, and his emotional journey felt complete. Repeating the disguise concept again risked feeling unnecessary and artificial. The idea remained stuck in development, and another screenwriter reportedly delivered a fresh version that finally excited both Williams and Columbus. Williams had one practical request, though. He didn't want to spend as much time buried inside the exhausting prosthetic makeup because he was older by then. Tragically, Williams passed away in August 2014 before Product R his death. The sequel was permanently shelved, ending any real chance of Entity movie, Mrs. Doubtfire 2, unproduced sequel film, ever happening. Mrs. Doubtfire 2. Number 4, the cast could have been completely different, and so could the movie. Before Robin Williams ever stepped into the role, alias Madame Doubtfire author Anne Fine originally wanted Warren Beatty to play Daniel Hillard. That version likely would have leaned into a far more serious and dramatic tone. ideas. At one point, their top choice was reportedly known celeb. Tim Allen are from Entity TV show. Home Improvement safer, more conventional family comedy, but probably not the emotional classic audiences remember today. Other names said to D Entity, known celebrity, Mel Gibson, a Mel Gibson M. Tom Hanks, Bill Murray C, Chevy Chase Y, different energy to the film. But once Williams got the part, the char no one else could truly recreate. Chaotic, heartfelt, unpredictable, and deeply human. The role of Miranda almost changed too. Director Entity P, American film director, initially wanted Enty Chris Columbus, while Entity, Catherine O'Hara Red, the Kirstie Alley Titty known celebrity, Sally Field, American actress, was cast and became the Sally Field he youngest daughter Natalie nearly went another way. A young Entity Novilly auditioned for the role, but Blake Lively the part. Mara Wilson, number 5. Mrs. Doubtfire's look was designed to feel like a real grandmother. Director Chris Columbus didn't want the disguise in Mrs. Doubtfire to look like a silly costume or an obvious man in drag. The challenge was simple to describe, but difficult to achieve. Audiences, and especially the children in the story, needed to genuinely believe that Mrs. Doubtfire was a real grandmother. The design team studied hundreds of vintage photographs, searching for the perfect elderly face. Eventually, they found a portrait from the 1940s of an older Englishwoman whose expression felt warm, proper, and instantly lovable. From that single item neared nearly every detail of Mrs. Doubtfire's appearance. The shape of the face, the softness of the features, and the comforting grandmotherly energy were all built from that inspiration. Combined with the award-winning prosthetic known celebrity, Robin Williams, American actor and Robin Williams' Ewers, genuinely forgot they were watching a man hidden beneath heavy makeup. Number 6, Mrs. Doubtfire was inspired by a real person in Edinburgh. The unforgettable character of Mrs. Doubtfire was partly inspired by a real woman whose eccentric personality became local legend. The name and much of the character's quirky spirit trace back to an Edinburgh shopkeeper named Annabel Coutts, who was widely known in the area as Madame Doubtfire. Sly, cluttered, second-hand shop filled with cats, discarded clothing, and a strange atmosphere that locals never forgot. Her unusual charm, mysterious presence, and chaotic energy made her stand out to anyone who passed by. Nearby resident and Lee, Anne Fine, British aunt Anne Fine ed by the woman behind it. That lasting impression would later help inspire her novel Entity book, alias Madame Doubtfire Asian for the film. When shaping the movie version of the challenge celebrity, Robin Williams, American actor and Robin Williams' Eldhood nanny, and a borrowed Scottish tone that helped bring Mrs. Doubtfire to life. The real Madame Doubtfire passed away in 1979, never knowing it would one day live on through one of the most beloved family films of the 1990s. Number 7, Robin Williams shut down filming so Sally Field could grieve. One of the most emotional moments connected to Mrs. Doubtfire never appeared on screen. While filming the intense courtroom custody scene, Sally Field received heartbreaking news that her father had passed away after suffering a massive stroke. Grief. Field initially tried to continue working. She returned to set, determined not to delay production or create problems for the crew. But Entity, known celeb Robin Williams, at something was wrong. When she told him, Williams didn't hesitate. As both the star of the film and one of its producers, he went directly to director Entity, People, Chris Columbus. Americ. Chris Columbus' tie-in schedule was rearranged on the spot so Field could leave immediately and be with her family. Field later described Williams as deeply intuitive, someone who noticed emotional pain that others might miss, and more importantly, someone who acted instead of only offering sympathy. It was a quiet act of compassion that never made the final cueing impression on everyone who witnessed it. Number 8, Pierce Brosnan's character was originally supposed to be the villain. At first, Stu Dunmire, the new man in Miranda's life, was written very differently in early versions of Mrs. Doubtfire. Instead of being charming and decent, he was meant to be the clear bad guy. The original script reportedly portrayed him as someone trying to push Daniel out completely, even wanting the children sent away to boarding school so he could have Miranda to himself. Selfish? Sneaky stepfather figure, the kind of character audiences would instantly hate. But director entity people, Siege, Chris Columbus' approach was too simple and cartoonish. The movie was never supposed to be about defeating a villain. It was about a flawed father facing the consequences of his own mistakes. So the character Woyle, instead of cruel and manipulative, Stu became patient, kind, emotionally mature, and genuinely good with the children. In many ways, he became the opposite of Daniel. Where Daniel was chaotic and impulsive, Stu was calm and stable. That change made the story far more into Sushi was no longer about protecting his family from an evil man. It came from his own insecurity. Stu wasn't stealing anything. He was simply being a good person. In fact, one of the only traces of the original villain Versailles poolside moment when Stu calls Daniel a loser. A deleted scene later even showed Daniel apologizing to Stu, reinforcing the truth that Stu was never the real problem. Daniel was. Number 9. The studio wanted a completely different ending. The emotional ending audiences know from Mrs. Doubtfire almost never happened. Original screenwriter Randy Mayhem Singer wrote the story with a realistic conclusion where Daniel and Miranda remained divorced but learned to co-parent their children as mature adults. Ompany. 2. 20th Century Fox, a more traditional Hollywood ending, one where the parents reunite and the family comes back together. In other words, a fairy tale resolution instead of a truthful one. That idea didn't sigh making the film. Many of the cast members and director entity people, Chris Columbus, Americ. Chris Columbus, they strongly believed the movie should not tell children that divorce always ends with parents magically getting back together. Entity known celebrity, Robin Williams. Robin Williams' studio even brought in another writer to reshape the ending. But after strong resistance from the lead actors and director, they eventually reversed course and restored the original vision. That decision gave the film one of its most powerful messages. Relationships can evolve, and love can still exist even after separation. The final scene, where Mrs. Doubtfire speaks directly to children about all kinds of families, only exists because the creative team fought to keep the ending real instead of perfect. Number 10. Becoming Mrs. Doubtfire took more than 4 hours every day. Transforming Robin Williams into Mrs. Doubtfire was a daily endurance challenge. The full makeup process took around 4 to 4.5 hours each day, and it involved far more than simple cosmetics, i.e. 8 separate foam latex prosthetic pieces to his face, carefully blending them together like a puzzle to create the illusion of an elderly Scottish nanny. After that came body padding, the full costume, wig, and multiple layers of paint to add realistic skin texture, wrinkles, and age spots. For much of the pro sit still with his head tilted back while artists worked with extreme precision. To keep him entertained, the crew even mounted a television on the ceiling above his chair so he could watch movies while the transformation happened. The hard work paid off when the film won Academy Awards, Annual Film Awards Ceremony, Academy Awards, because Williams was known to sweat heavily. If even one seam loosened, the prosthetics could begin breaking down under the hot studio lights. Williams once joked that wearing the full suit felt like being the world's largest condom. And on hotter days, the makeup would literally start softening, turning every shoot into a race against time. Number 11. A Looney Tunes legend directed the opening cartoon. The animated opening of Mrs. Doubtfire was created with help from one of the greatest cartoon minds in history. The sequence featuring Pudgy the Parakeet and Grunge the Cat was designed by Chuck Jones, the legendary creator behind icons like Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck and the Roadrunner E-movie with a standard intro. Director entity people, Chris Columbus Teve, nostalgic and memorable. Jones didn't come alone either. He assembled a powerhouse animation team that included veterans like Bill Littlejohn and Tom Ray, along with rising talent entity people. Eric Goldberg on the Genie and Entity movie, a la Aladdin said by Entity Tay, known celeb. Robin Williams' NS of animation, though much of it was eventually cut. Extended versions later appeared as bonus material. The cartoon intro also cleverly introduced personality. In the story, Daniel refuses to record lines because Pudgy the Parakeet is shown smoking a cigarette. That protest costs him his job immediately, establishing one important truth right away. He has strong principles, but terrible judgment. Number 12. Lisa Jacob was expelled from school for starring in the film. Playing Lydia in Mrs. Doubtfire came with a real-life cost for Lisa Jacob. At just 14 years old, the Toronto teenager landed a major Hollywood role and worked with a tutor on set while filming in California. She completed assignments and mailed her schoolwork back home, doing everything she could to balance acting and education. TC it the same way. Despite missing classes for a legitimate film production, Jacob later received notice that she would not be allowed to return because she had missed too many days. Rules were rules. She was devastated. An extraordinary opportunity, she felt punished for it. When entity known celebrity, Robin Williams. Robin Williams stepped in. Williams wrote a passionate letter to the school principal, asking them to reconsider and support her education rather than penalize her success. The principal still refused, according to Med Williams' letter, and displayed it in his office. Jacob never returned to that school and later spoke about how painful it was to lose that normal teenage experience. Number 13, Robin Williams took Mrs. Doubtfire into the real world, and nobody noticed. Between shooting days, Robin Williams would sometimes walk around town fully dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire just to see if anyone recognized him. Amazingly, almost no one did. The prosthetic makeup was so convincing that even his own son reportedly failed to recognize him on set until he heard Williams' unmistakable voice coming through the disguise. Only the beginning. In one of the wildest offset stories, Williams reportedly entered an adult store while completely dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire. Wig, glasses, outfit, and all. He browsed the shop and even tried to purchase what he later jokingly described as a double-headed pleasure device. The employee had no one of Hollywood's biggest stars and politely assisted the strange elderly customer. Only after Williams dropped the accent and revealed who he really was did the clerk realize what had happened and burst into laughter. It was the perfect example of how Believe-N really was. On screen, it fooled an entire family, and off-screen, it fooled the real world too. Number 14, the melting mask was a total accident, and it became iconic. One of the most unforgettable moments in Mrs. Doubtfire is when Mrs. Doubtfire's frosting-covered face slowly begins to melt under pressure. But that legendary scene was never planned that way. The script originally called for Daniel to hide the fact that he wasn't wearing his prosthetic mask by quickly smashing his face into a cake when the social worker suddenly arrived. Udio lights. The frosting started melting much faster than anyone expected. It slid down entity known celeb, Robin Williams' chin, and turned a simple disguise gag into total chaos. Then came the moment ripted. A blob of icing dropped straight into the social worker's tea. Most actors would have frozen and waited for the director to yell cut. Williams did the exact opposite. Without missing a beat, still fully in character, he improvised the line. There you go. You've got your cream and sugar now. The joke wasn't written. The gag wasn't tie-in, was completely real. Director entity, people, Chris Columbus, American film director. Chris Columbusation became one of the most quoted and beloved moments in the entire film. Number 15, Robin Williams turned the set into a 2 million-foot comedy machine. Robin Williams brought his full comic energy to every single scene in Mrs. Doubtfire, and the crew had no choice but to keep the cameras rolling almost non-stop. By the end of production, they had used close to 2 million feet of film, an enormous amount for a movie in the early 1990s, especially when every extra take meant extra money. Epp hyped into character. Stopping the cameras simply wasn't an option. He would first perform several takes exactly as written, clean, sharp, and perfectly timed. Then, after director entity people, Chris Columbus Williams was allowed to improvise freely. Instead of repeating lines, he invented fresh jokes, strange voices, and brand new reactions every time. To capture the chaos multiple cameras at once. He wasn't only filming Williams, he was also filming the other actors as they struggled not to laugh or break character. Some scenes went through more than 15 takes, not because of mistakes, but because Williams kept finding new ways to make everyone crack up. It felt less like shooting a movie and MV comedy show unfold in real time. Meanwhile, the script supervisor had the impossible task of writing down every improvised line as Williams turned the script into a launchpad for nonstop comedy. Number 16, Robin Williams made the child actors feel like they were part of a real family. Working on Mrs. Doubtfire could have been intimidating for young actors, especially with a star as legendary and unpredictable as Robin Williams leading the film. But instead of overwhelming them, Williams made sure the children on set felt safe, included, and genuinely cared for. Cast members have spoken over the years about how playful and warm he was between takes. He constantly joked around, improvised silly voices, and kept the mood light whenever scenes became emotionally heavy. That energy helped the younger actors relax and respond naturally on camera. Rather than treating them like inexperienced kids, William Lee spoke to them with kindness and respect, making them feel like true scene partners. That trust is a big reason the family chemistry in the movie feels so believable. Many viewers remember the laughs, the disguise, and the chaos, but the emotional core of the film works because the relationships feel real. Behind the scenes, Williams helped create that atmosphere long before the cameras rolled. Sometimes the best acting trick isn't makeup at all. It's making people feel like family. Number 17, Mrs. Doubtfire became one of the biggest box office surprises of the decade. When Mrs. Doubtfire was released, few expected a strange comedy about a divorced father disguising himself as an elderly nanny to become such a massive worldwide hit. The premise sounded bizarre on paper, but audiences connected instantly with its humor and heart. Powered by the unforgettable performance of Robin Williams, the film exploded at the box office and became one of the highest-grossing movies of 1993. Families returned to theaters again and again, helping turn it into a true cultural phenomenon. What made the success even more impressive was that the movie balanced slapstick comedy with emotional themes like divorce, parenting, and family change, topics that many studios believed were too heavy for mainstream audiences. Instead, Mrs. Doubtfire proved that a film could be hilarious, heartfelt, and commercially huge at the same time. More than 30 years later, people still quote the lines, remember the scenes, and introduce it to new generations. That's when you know a hit became something bigger, a classic. Number 18, Robin Williams secretly helped strangers while dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire. During breaks in filming, Robin Williams sometimes stayed in full Mrs. Doubtfire makeup longer than necessary and walked through public places without revealing who he was. According to people who worked around the production, he loved seeing how ordinary people reacted to the character in real life. AC on, Williams reportedly used the disguise to speak with strangers who had no idea they were talking to a Hollywood superstar. He would offer directions, make small talk, and even cheer up stressed people with quick jokes delivered in Mrs. Doubtfire's warm Scottish voice. What made it special was that there was no camera, no publicity, and no audience applause. He was simply using the character to brighten random people's days. That story perfectly captures why audiences loved him so much. Even hidden behind layers of latex and costume, Robin Williams still found ways to make people smile.